Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Storytime with Moog. I am Moog, and today we are continuing on with The Deerslayer by James Fenimore Cooper, starting with chapter 24. But first, hello, everybody. So good to see you all. Hello. Happy, joyous Thursday. Wadsworth, hello. Good to see you. Elite, hello. Mermaid, thank you so much for the 7-stream streak. Thank you. I appreciate you. Star, hello. I've heard tell. Gita, thank you so much for the prime. 15 months. My word. Thank you. Pulse, hello. Good to see you. Ember, happy birthday. Happiest of birthdays to you. You had an ice cream cake. It was okay. Oh no. Not awful. Captain Hardship, hello. Good to see you. What kind of ice cream was it? I don't know if I've ever actually had an ice cream cake. I've seen them. I've looked at them. I've made eye contact with them. But I don't think I've ever eaten one. Is it literally just ice cream in the shape of cake with frosting on it? Excuse me, Wadsworth? What did you just say? Should eat one? What are you saying to me? Fudgy the whale? What is this? What are you saying to me? I'm looking it up. Okay, well, as soon as I typed fudgy, oh, I don't like his eyebrow. I don't like Fudgy the Whale's eyebrow. I don't. It's a little too smarmy for me. The cake was more ice cream than cake. Also, it was chocolate and vanilla. Okay, okay. More of a mix of cake and ice cream usually. Gotcha. Okay. I have not spent the night with Carvel. I haven't. Carnival? Carnival? Carnivals. Fudgy's seen a thing or two. Yeah, for sure. I haven't. I haven't, Ember. No. He's got that 1,000-yard stare. No, I've never had an ice cream cake before. Fudgy knows what he did. I mean, with a name like Fudgy, can we already guess what happened? That was crass. I apologize. You've seen them, but never had them. Right. Something about putting together gives you wet bread vibes. Duddy, hello. Good to see you. Welcome in. Um, yeah, I don't know how I feel about. I mean, obviously, I don't know. Can you buy ice cream cake just by the slice, or do you have to get a full ice cream cake? Like, you know, at the store, how you can also just get, like, in those little, like, containers, you can get just, like, a slice of their cake, whatever, like, the bakery has. Can you do that with ice cream cake? They also do cookie puss. Is this gonna throw off my algorithm? As soon as I typed cookie, it immediately. Oh no. Oh, I don't like cookie puss. Oh, I don't like it. No, get it away from me. Oh my god, it's terrifying. Oh, I hate it. I hate it so much. No. No, it's too cursed. No, get it off my screen. Get it off my screen. That's terrifying. Oh my gosh. If you haven't fudgy with us, you definitely don't want to look up Cookie Puss. Oh no. Oh, I'm crying. Steven, hello. Good to see you. Close the tab. Quick. No, stop Googling it. It's terrifying. It's cursed. Don't. Your new night terror. Your sleep. What is it? Sleep paralysis demon? No, get it out of here. Do they still sell these? Can you still get these? It kind of looks like, when people do those like um those fails of like trying to do like a Pinterest craft and then it just looks terrifying. That's kind of what it looks like. It does still exist. Okay, somebody asked what is it supposed to be? Cookie Puss is a space alien. Uh, I can't get over it. I can't get over it. What did I just walk in on? Steven, the horrors. The horrors! Wait, there's Hug Me the Bear. Okay, hold on. We have to look up Hug Me the Bear. Oh no. No. I don't like any of them. I don't like any of them. During the 1980s, Cookie Puss was repurposed to serve as a cake for St. Patrick's Day, dubbed Cookiopus, which continues to be sold annually. Oh my god. Order it and eat it on stream. I was thinking about that, but I'm just imagining that they put the best pictures online. So I'm gonna get it and it's gonna be even scarier. And I don't I I don't want that. I don't want that. Oh, you're right. I should have been just sharing my screen. Instead of just like instead of just freaking out in front of all of you. Okay, hold on. We have to go in order. Fudgy. Fudgy the whale was first. Oh, Lord. Lord above. Okay, let's see. Can I Oh, oh, oh. I'm zooming in so we'll be able to see it better. Oh wait. Hold on. Hold your horses, okay? Hold your horses. It'll be worth it, I promise. Fudgy the whale. Okay, images. Let's, let's, oh, oh, let's zoom in. Let's zoom on in. Okay, at first, I thought he was the worst. I was like, I don't like this. This is terrible. This is terrible. His little eyebrow, he's so smarmy. This one, somebody looked like they made it home. Okay, this one's a little better. Okay, I don't love him. I don't. I don't. The freak out is valid. I don't like this. I don't like this at all. Where's his tail? Okay, so this was upsetting. This was upsetting. But then we looked up Cookie Puss. Yeah, now I've warmed up to Fudgy because it just kept getting worse. I hate him. I hate him so much. Oh my god, these are little arms. Oh no. Oh. Okay, so there's Cookie Puss, who apparently is a space alien. He's just a little guy doing his best. I hate it. Okay, and then what was the last one's name? What was his name? Oh no. Something the bear. Something bear. I don't remember what it was though. Hold on. I'm scrolling back. I'm scrolling back. Um, um, um. It's gone. It's gone forever. It's gone forever. Okay, hold on. Let me find it really quick. What was his name? Okay, so there's Fudgy, there's Cookie. What was the bear's name? Danny Hello. Wait, what? Where did he go? Uh-oh. Uh-oh, he's gone. Hug Me Bear. Okay, that's what he was called. Yes. I was like, oh no, he's gone forever. Hug Me Bear. Wait. Oh, Carmen. There we go. Okay. Okay. I wouldn't trust anybody alone in a room with him. Look at him. Look at his eyes. I hate it so much. I hate it so much. Oh, there's all three of them. There's the whole gang just hanging out, having a great time. Well, if this didn't convince me to get an ice cream cake, I don't know what would. I don't know what would convince me, you know? Oh, the horrors. They can't be unseen. The war vet cake with 1,000 yard stare. Okay, so Fudgy isn't so bad now. Fudgy isn't so bad. Since I'm glad that we started with Fudgy. He was like a warm up. Cookie Puss reminds you of a video game where you can turn people's limbs into different foods. Oh my gosh. Oh, I wasn't ready for any of that. Well, happy birthday, Amber. Did your ice cream cake look like these terrors? Raven, hello. I don't think I said hi to you. Hello. Would try to make for your birthday. Right, right. And it would just turn out horribly wrong and cursed. Like those Halloween costumes, like from way back in the day where they were all homemade and like face paint just wasn't quite there yet either. You were crying, so it was not offended. Okay, good. Thank you. I was going through it. That Office episode where they were ordering birthday cakes and Andy successfully lobbies for Fudgy the Whale. I don't remember that. I don't remember that episode. I've seen The Office. I don't remember. It didn't. It was just a regular round cake. Okay, good. Okay, good. The terror. The absolute jump scare. Not an abomination. It was just an ice cream cake. Part of me really wants to go and find one, though. The other part never wants to see one ever again. Ever. Oh, the horrors. The absolute horrors. Buzzer, thank you for posting in Discord. Oh. Messed up enough to find Fudgy to be jolly. Oh, Andy. Oh, Andy. Great. Great. Well, yeah, I'm gonna have to go and find I'm gonna look through every Frozen section to see if I can find them, or I'll avoid it and continue living a joyful life. There used to be an infomercial that sold molds to make your own ice cream cake. I didn't realize that ice cream cake was so, like, such a thing. Sassy Sunday is your favorite from the Discord ones? I have to look at it. Oh, well, yeah. Obviously. Obviously. You don't like Big Sammy Thick Shake? I just like the name. Nomad, hello, good to see you. Something about round horror cakes. Nomad, we just looked up ice cream cakes, and I'm gonna save you by not looking it up. But if you wanted to, Fudgy the whale. You have to look at it in this order. Fudgy the whale. Who was next? Oh my god. Cookie Puss. And then Hug Me Bear. If you don't want to, if you don't want to have night terrors, don't look them up. Don't you dare look them up. uh, they had Fudgy the Whale in Canada, but they called him Annual Gift Cake. And he lives on the moon? What? Those Canadians. What are you guys doing up there? Annual Gift Cake. And he lives on the moon. I think you made that up. I think you made that up. Never thought I would type that, but okay, here we are. Here we are. It's a Simpsons. How dare you make me think that something was true? How dare you? How dare you? I should learn by now. I am not. I am not Canadian. I have Canadian relatives, but I am not Canadian. It's about Japanese Santa Claus? Make sure you spell annual right. Oh no. Oh no. That might be taking you to some other sites. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. All right. I have would it might surprise you, but I have no segue. I have no segue from horror ice cream cakes to this. Thank you for the full quote. Would rhyme with a boot. No, I'm not. I'm here, not in Canada. Um, Lies I believed too long. No, I'm too mean to be Canadian. I'm too mean. I don't say sorry enough, and I don't say it with the right accent. The Fargo accent is a little too good, yeah. How can anyone segue? I don't know. I don't know. We're not going to. We're just gonna pretend that we all have ADHD and we're just gonna aggressively shift topics without any segue. A couple days ago, A couple days ago when we were reading, I dressed up as a deer because Deerslayer, and today I wore my very faded Slayer shirt because Deerslayer. So there we go. That's that was something that I wanted to say like 20 minutes ago. Oh man, I am gonna dream about Hug Me Bear's face, and it's gonna be terrifying. Can I sing you a Slayer song? No, no. Was the we did barking before. Was that disturbed? I feel like we did disturbed barking. Anyway, this has just been a really disappointing dream so far. Horror ice cream cakes and no barking. Terrible. Terrible. Way too nice to be American. American. Five Nights at Hug Me Bear. Oh, that's probably more terrifying than the original. Oh man. All right. Today we're reading The Deerslayer by James Fenimore Cooper. We're starting with chapter 24. What's happened so far? So glad that you asked. Um, we had a death. We had a death in the family. Floating Tom, no more. No more floating. Actually, ironically, now he's at the bottom of the lake, so he literally is no longer floating Tom. It's a missed opportunity that nobody has called him Sinking Tom, but that's probably too morbid for this book. Anyway, Floating Tom was scalped by the Hurons, and that's not what killed him. He was also stabbed in the stomach, so that was his fatal wound. But before he died, Judith and Hetty found out that he's not actually their father. So they package him up and they put him on the ark and they lower him into the lake right next to their mom. And Judith is like, oh, look at me. I'm Judith. I know that you have something to say to me, Hurry. What is it? So Hurry proposes to Judith, and Judith is like, no. I've been waiting forever to plainly tell you. No. And so then they have the rest of the awkward boat ride back to shore. And then Deerslayer is there. He is on furlough, and he has a question for each of the people in the group, and they each have to respond to it. And then he's going to go back to the Hurons and relate the messages. And it's along the lines of Watawa, a dude warrior fell in love with you among the Hurons, and you left him heartbroken. You gonna come back? Chingachgook, like, we won't hurt you as long as you don't hurt us, and you give us Watawa, you can, like, follow in our wake. Hurry. I don't remember what Hurry's deal was, but they offered Judith and Hetty to live with one of the warriors who just lost his partner because Hurry shot her, which nobody knows about. And so everybody gave their answers. It's pretty much like, no, 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 not gonna happen. Judith and Hetty are worried about living where they currently are because now they don't have a man to support them, and they don't know how to do anything without a man there, and they don't want to live in the settlement. And this is the first time that Judith is like, hey, Hetty, what do you think of Deerslayer? And Hetty is like, I mean, I guess he's okay. And I think that's pretty much everything. I think that's where we're caught up. Hello, welcome in. Good to see you. Rock bottom Tom. Yeah. Scalping ruins the buoyancy. You're right. You're right. Mm-mm-mm. All right. Oh, wait, but we have to do our prediction. Okay, so yesterday's prediction, we did a prediction. So we, I don't use it. The author uses the word expedient and expedience for a total of 43 times in this book, which means sometimes we get chapters with nothing in it, and sometimes we get chapters where there's 5 uses of the same word. Yesterday, there was no uses in the 3 chapters that we read. So we're going to make a prediction, and we're going to do it chapter by chapter rather than like the span of the day. Magic trick. Rather than the span of the day. So we're going to use our little channel points. Let's see, how many times... Oh no, we're just going to do it, will it show up? Will the word expedient or expedience show up? So, yes or no? We'll just do it for 2 minutes because I should have had this up earlier while we were talking about ice cream cakes, and I didn't. Yeah, 2 people won yesterday, and they got 11.7K. That's crazy. That's crazy. So, will it show up in this chapter? Will it not? Hmm? Expedient. Do, 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 do. Also, in Discord, if you're not in Discord, we have a Discord. In Discord, I put up a bunch of watch parties. We have the dates for our Opla One Piece live action season 2 all set up and going. We also have our dates for our horror watch party. We don't have our film yet, but we do have a date for our horror one, and we have a date for our December Gremlins one. So all of that information is in Discord. Would love to have you eating popcorn, having snacks. I already have a snack for our August one. We have an August one coming up on the 14th. We're watching The Last Unicorn. I have 2 candy options for it. I don't know which ones to eat. It's Sour Patch Kids watermelon or Nerds clusters. It's a hard choice. So it's probably a decision I'll make day of, honestly. Or I'll just eat both of them. And it's the last time we'll be watching it for The Last Unicorn. I should also find where it's streaming. I didn't do any of that legwork yet. I should. Okay, are we in? When do we know? 2 weeks after. Here, I'll just pull up the date. So our August watch party is going to be on the 14th. So we'll know on August 28th. Because it'll go to Patreon first, and then it'll go to subs. But it's free on YouTube. Oh, I always forget to look on YouTube. Unicorns poop rainbows. We already knew that. Florida Kevin, hello, good to see you. All right, let's do it. It's a long chapter. I say that literally every time, but this one is maybe the longest one we've had so far. So buckle up, buttercups. Let's have a little sip and let's get to it. What did you just call me? Not you. Respectfully. Respectfully, not you. Chapter 24. Thy secret pleasure turns to open shame, thy private feasting to a public fast, thy smoothing titles to a ragged name, thy sugared tongue to bitter wormwood taste. Thy violent vanities can never last. Shakespeare, lines 890 to 94. Now you feel excluded. That wasn't my intention. My intention was a respectful, only if you want to be called Buttercup, Buttercup. It's how you use it, right? Right? How expedient it is. Oh, you gotta pay on YouTube. That's fair. We'll find it. I'm not worried. Judith was waiting on the return of Deerslayer on the platform with stifled impatience when the latter reached the hut. Hist and Hetty were both in a deep sleep on the bed usually occupied by the two daughters of the house, and the Delaware was stretched on the floor of the adjoining room, his rifle at his side and a blanket over him, already dreaming of the events of the last few days. There was a lamp burning in the ark, for the family was accustomed to indulge in this luxury on extraordinary occasions, and possessed the means, the vessel being of a form and material to render it probable it had once been an occupant of the chest. As soon as the girl got a glimpse of the canoe, she ceased her hurried walk up and down the platform and stood ready to receive the young man, whose return she had now been anxiously expecting for some time. She helped him to fasten the canoe, and by aiding in the other little similar employments, manifested her desire to reach a moment of liberty as soon as possible. When this was done, in answer to an inquiry of his, she informed him of the manner in which their companions had disposed of themselves. He listened attentively, for the manner of the girl was so earnest and impressive as to apprise him that she had something on her mind of more than common concern. "And now, Deerslayer," Judith continued, "you see I have lighted the lamp and put it in the cabin of the ark. That is never done with us, unless on great occasions, and I consider this night as the most important of my life. Will you follow me and see what I have to show you? Hear what I have to say?" It's a trap! Oh, it's on Prime, you think? Okay, cool. Easier than I thought it was going to be. The hunter was a little surprised, but, making no objections, both were soon in the scow and in the room that contained the light. Here, two stools were placed at the side of the chest, with the lamp on another, and a table nearby to receive the different articles as they might be brought to view. This arrangement had its rise in the feverish impatience of the girl, which could brook no delay that it was in her power to obviate. Even all the padlocks were removed, and it only remained to raise the heavy lid again, to expose all the treasures of this long-secreted hoard. "I see, in part, what all this means," observed Deerslayer. "Yes, I see through it in part, but why is not Hetty present? Now Thomas Hutter is gone, she is one of the owners of these curiosities, and ought to see them opened and handled." "Hetty sleeps," answered Judith huskily. "Happily for her, fine clothes and riches have no charms. Besides, she has this night given her share of all that the chest may hold to me, that I may do with it as I please." "Is poor Hetty compass enough for that, Judith?" demanded the just-minded young man. "It's a good rule and a righteous one, never to take when them that give don't know the veil of their gifts, and such as God has visited heavily in their wits ought to be dealt with as carefully as children that haven't yet come to their understandings." Judith was hurt at this rebuke, coming from the person it did, but she would have felt it far more keenly had not her conscience fully acquitted her of any unjust intentions towards her feeble-minded but confiding sister. It was not a moment, however, to betray any of her usual mountings of the spirit, and she smothered the passing sensation in the desire to come to the great object she had in view. Hetty will not be wronged, she mildly answered. She even knows not only what I am about to do, Deerslayer, but why I do it. So take your seat, raise the lid of the chest, and this time we will go to the bottom. I shall be disappointed if something is not found to tell us more of the history of Thomas Hutter and my mother. Why Thomas Hutter, Judith, and not your father? The dead ought to meet with as much reverence as the living. I have long suspected that Thomas Hutter was not my father, though I did think he might have been Hetty's. But now we know he was the father of neither. He acknowledged that much in his dying moments. I am old enough to remember better things than we have seen on this lake, though they are so faintly impressed on my memory that the earlier part of my life seems like a dream. Dreams are but miserable guides when one has to determine about realities, Judith, returned the other admonishingly. Fancy nothing and hope nothing on their account, though I've known chiefs that thought 'em useful. I expect nothing for the future from them, my good friend, but cannot help remembering what has been. This is idle, however, when half an hour of examination may tell us all, or even more than I want to know. Deerslayer, who comprehended the girl's impatience, now took his seat, and proceeded once more to bring to light the different articles that the chest contained. As a matter of course, all that had been previously examined were found where they had been last deposited, and they excited much less interest or comment than when formerly exposed to view. Even Judith laid aside the rich brocade with an air of indifference, for she had a far higher aim before her than the indulgence of vanity, and was impatient to come at the still hidden, or rather unknown, treasures. All these we have seen before, she said, and will not stop to open. The bundle under your hand, Deerslayer, is a fresh one. That we will look into. God send it may contain something to tell poor Hetty and myself who we really are. Aye, if bundles could speak, they might tell wonderful secrets, returned the young man, deliberately undoing the folds of another piece of coarse canvas, in order to come at the contents of the roll that lay on his knees. Though this doesn't seem to be one of that family, seeing 'tis neither more nor less than a sort of flag, though of what nation it passes my larnin to say. That flag must have some meaning to it, Judith hurriedly interposed. Open it wider, Deerslayer, that we may see the colors. Well, I pity the ensign that has to shoulder this cloth, and to parade it about on the field. Why, 'tis large enough, Judith, to make a dozen of them colors the king's officers set so much store by. These can be no ensign's colors, but a general's. A ship might carry it, Deerslayer, and ships I know do use such things. Have you never heard any fearful stories about Thomas Hutter's having once been concerned with the people they call buccaneers? Buccaneer. Not I. Not I. I never heard him mentioned as good as a buck far off, or nearby. Hurry Harry did tell me something about its being supposed that he had formerly, in some way or other, dealings with sartain sea robbers, but, Lord, Judith, it can't surely give you any satisfaction to make out that again your mother's own husband, though he isn't your father. Anything will give me satisfaction that tells me who I am, and helps to explain the dreams of childhood. My mother's husband. Yes, he must have been that, though why a woman like her should have chosen a man like him is more than mortal reason can explain. You never saw Mother, Deerslayer, and can't feel the vast, vast difference there was between them. Such things do happen, however, Yes, they do happen, though why Providence lets them come to pass is more than I understand. I've knew the fiercest warriors with the gentlest wives of any of the tribe, and awful scolds fall to the lot of natives fit to be missionaries. That was not it, Deerslayer. That was not it. Oh, if it should prove that... No, I cannot wish she should not have been his wife at all. That no daughter can wish for her own mother. Go on now. Let us see what the square-looking bundle holds. Deerslayer complied, and he found that it contained a small trunk of pretty workmanship, but fastened. The next point was to find a key. But, search proving ineffectual, it was determined to force the lock. This Deerslayer soon effected by the aid of an iron instrument, and it was found that the interior was nearly filled with papers. Many were letters, some fragments of manuscripts, memorandums, accounts, and other similar documents. The hawk does not pounce upon the chicken with a more sudden swoop than Judith sprang forward to seize this mine of hitherto concealed knowledge. Her education, as the reader will have perceived, was far superior to her situation in life, and her eye glanced over page after page of the letters with a readiness that her schooling supplied, and with an avidity that found its origin to her feelings. At first, it was evident that the girl was gratified, and we may add with reason, for the letters written by females, in innocence and affection, were of a character to cause her to feel proud of those with whom she had every reason to think she was closely connected by the ties of blood. It does not come within the scope of our plan to give more of these epistles, however, than a general idea of their contents, and this will best be done by describing the effect they produced on the manner, appearance, and feeling of her who was so eagerly perusing them. It has been said already that Judith was much gratified with the letters that first met her eye. They contained the correspondence of an affectionate and intelligent mother to an absent daughter, with such allusions to the answers as served in a great measure to fill up the vacuum left by the replies. They were not without admonitions and warnings, however, and Judith felt the blood mounting to her temples, and a cold shudder succeeding as she read one in which the propriety of the daughter's indulging in as much intimacy as had evidently been described in one of the daughter's own letters, with an officer who came from Europe, and who could hardly be supposed to wish to form an honorable connection in America, was rather coldly commented on by her mother. What rendered it singular was the fact that the signatures had been carefully cut from every one of these letters, and wherever a name occurred in the body of the epistles, it had been erased with so much diligence as to render it impossible to read. They had all been enclosed in envelopes, according to the fashion of the age, and not an address either was to be found. Still, the letters themselves had been religiously preserved, and Judith thought she could discover traces of tears remaining on several. She now remembered to have seen the little trunk in her mother's keeping, previously to her death, and she supposed it had first been deposited in the chest, along with the other forgotten or concealed objects, when the letters could no longer contribute to that parent's grief or happiness. Next came another bundle, and these were filled with protestations of love, written with passion, certainly, but also with that deceit which men so often think it justifiable to use to the other sex. Judith had shed tears abundantly over the first packet, but now she felt a sentiment of indignation and pride better sustaining her. Her head shook, however, and cold shivers again passed through her frame as she discovered a few points of strong resemblance between these letters, and some it had been her own fate to receive. Once, indeed, she laid the packet down, bowed her head to her knees, and seemed nearly convulsed. All this time Deerslayer sat a silent but attentive observer of everything that passed. As Judith read a letter, she put it into his hands to hold until she could peruse the next. But this served in no degree to enlighten her companion, as he was totally unable to read. Nevertheless, he was not entirely at fault in discovering the passions that were contending in the bosom of the fair creature by his side, and as occasional sentences escaped her in murmurs, he was nearer the truth in his divinations or conjectures than the girl would have been pleased at discovering. Judith had commenced with the earliest letters, luckily for a ready comprehension of the tale they told, for they were carefully arranged in chronological order, and to anyone who would take the trouble to peruse them would have revealed a sad history of gratified passion, coldness, and finally of aversion. As she obtained the clue to their import, her impatience would not admit of delay, and she soon got to glancing her eyes over a page by way of coming to the truth in the briefest manner possible. By adopting this expedient, we got the word! Okay, let me finish the sentence and then I'll divvy out. By adopting this expedient, one to which all who are eager to arrive at results without encumbering themselves with details are so apt to resort, Judith made a rapid progress in these melancholy revelations of her mother's failing and punishment. She saw that the period of her own birth was distinctly referred to, and even learned that the homely man she bore was given by her father. Of her person she retained so faint an impression as to resemble a dream. This name was not obliterated from the text of letters, but stood as if nothing was to be gained by erasing it. Hetty's birth was mentioned once, and in that instance the name was the mother's, but ere this period was reached came the signs of coldness, shadowing forth the desertion that was so soon to follow. It was in this stage of the correspondence that her mother had recourse to the plan of copying her own epistles. They were but few, but were eloquent with the feeling of blighted affection and contrition. Judith sobbed over them, until again and again she felt compelled to lay them aside from sheer physical inability to see, her eyes being literally obscured with tears. Still, she returned to the task with increasing interest, and finally succeeded in reaching the end of the latest communication that had probably ever passed between parents. All right. We got the word. Okay. Will the word expedience show up? Yes. There we go. Oh, thank you so much for the hydrate. I appreciate it. You got 710. Our winners got 710. Amazing. Amazing. All this occupied fully an hour, for near 100 letters were glanced at, and some 20 had been closely read. The truth now shone clear upon the acute mind of Judith, so far as her own birth and that of Hetty were concerned. She sickened at the conviction and for the moment, the rest of the world seemed to be cut off from her, and she had now additional reasons for wishing to pass the remainder of her life on the lake, where she had already seen so many bright and so many sorrowing days. Look at me now, Mom. I won. Post that on the fridge, will ya? There yet remained more letters to examine. Judith found these were a correspondence between her mother and Thomas Hovey. The originals of both parties were carefully arranged, letter and answer, side by side, and they told the early history of the connection between the ill-assorted pair far more plainly than Judith wished to learn it. Her mother made the advances towards a marriage, to the surprise, not to say horror, of her daughter, and she actually found a relief when she discovered traces of what struck her as insanity, or a morbid desperation bordering on that dire calamity in the earlier letters of that ill-fated woman. The answers of Hovey were coarse and illiterate, though they manifested a sufficient desire to obtain the hand of a woman of singular personal attraction, and whose great error he was willing to overlook for the advantage of possessing one every way so much his superior, and who it also appeared was not altogether destitute of money. The remainder of this part of the correspondence was brief, and it was soon confined to a few communications on business, in which the miserable wife hastened the absent husband in his preparations to abandon a world which there was a sufficient reason to think was as dangerous to one of the parties as it was disagreeable to the other. But a sincere expression had escaped her mother, by which Judith could get a clue to the motives that had indulged her to marry Hovey, or Hutter, and this, she found, was that feeling of resentment which so often tempts the injured to inflict wrongs on themselves by way of heaping coals on the heads of those through whom they have suffered. Judith had enough of the spirit of that mother to comprehend this sentiment, and for a moment did she see the exceeding folly which permitted such revengeful feelings to get the ascendancy. There what may be called the historical part of the papers ceased. Among the loose fragments, however, was an old newspaper that contained a proclamation offering a reward for the apprehension of certain freebooters by name, among which was that of Thomas Hovey. The attention of the girl was drawn to the proclamation and to this particular name by the circumstance that black lines had been drawn under both, in ink. Nothing else was found among the papers that could lead to a discovery of either the name or the place of residence of the wife of Hutter. All the dates, signatures, and addresses had been cut from the letters, and wherever a word occurred in the body of the communications that might furnish a clue, it was scrupulously erased. Thus Judith found all her hopes of ascertaining who her parents were defeated, and she was obliged to fall back on her own resources and habits for everything connected with the future. Her recollection of her mother's manners, conversation, and sufferings filled up many a gap in the historical facts she had now discovered, and the truth, in its outlines, stood sufficiently distinct before her to take away all desire, indeed, to possess any more details. Throwing herself back in her seat, she simply desired her companion to finish the examination of the other articles in her chest, as it might yet contain something of importance. "I'll do it, Judith. I'll do it," returned the patient Deerslayer. "But if there's many more letters to read, we shall see the sun again afore you've got through with reading them. 2 good hours have you been looking at them bits of paper?" They tell me of my parents, Deerslayer, and have settled my plans for life. A girl may be excused who reads about her own father and mother, and that, too, for the first time in her life. I am sorry to have kept you waiting. Never mind me, gal, never mind me. It matters little whether I sleep or watch. But though you be pleasant to look at and are so handsome, Judith, it is not altogether agreeable to sit so long to behold you shedding tears. I know that tears don't kill, and that some people are better for shedding a few now and then, especially young women, but I'd rather see you smile any time, Judith, than see you weep. This gallant speech was rewarded with a sweet, though a melancholy, smile, and then the girl again desired her companion to finish the examination of the chest. The search necessarily continued some time, during which Judith collected her thoughts and regained her composure. She took no part in the search, leaving everything to the young man, looking listlessly herself at the different articles that came uppermost. Nothing further of much interest or value, however, was found. A sword or two, such as were then worn by gentlemen, some bottles of silver, or so richly plated as to appear silver, and a few handsome articles of female dress, composed the principal discoveries. It struck both Judith and the Deerslayer, notwithstanding, that some of these things might be made useful in effecting a negotiation with the Iroquois, though the latter saw a difficulty in the way that was not so apparent to the former. The conversation was first renewed in connection with this point. "And now, Deerslayer," said Judith, "we may talk of yourself, and of the means of getting you out of the hands of the Hurons. Any part, or all of what you have seen in the chest, will be cheerfully given by me and Hetty to set you at liberty." "Well, that's generous, yes, 'tis downright free-hearted and free-handed and generous. This is the way with women. When they take up a friendship, they do nothing by halves, but are as willing to part with their property as if it had no value in their eyes. However, while I thank you both, just as much as if the bargain was made, and Rivenoak or any of the other vagabonds was here to accept and close the treaty, there's two principal reasons why it can never come to pass, which may be as well told at once, in order to unlikely expectations may be raised in you, or only unjustifiable hopes in me." "What reason can there be, if Hetty and I are willing to part with the trifles for your sake, and the enemies are willing to receive them?" "That's it, Judith. You've got the ideas, but they're a little out of their places, as if a hound should take the backguard instead of the leading scent. That the Mingoes will be willing to receive them things, or any more like 'em, you may have to offer is probable enough. But whether they'll pay value for them is quite another matter. Ask yourself, Judith, if anyone should send you a message to say that, for such or such a price, you and Hetty might have that chist and all it holds, whether you'd think it worth your while to waste many words on a bargain?" "But this chest and all it holds are already ours. There is no reason why we should purchase what is already our own." "Just so the Mingoes calculate. It's calculate, but with dialect." "Just so the Mingoes calculate. They say the chist is therein already, or as good as therein, and they'll not thank anybody for the key." "I understand you, Deerslayer. Surely we are yet in possession of the lake, and we can keep possession of it until Hurry sends troops to drive off the enemy. This we may certainly do, provided you will stay with us, instead of going back and giving yourself up a prisoner again, as you now seem determined on." "That Hurry Harry should talk in this a way is natural and according to the gifts of the man. He knows no better, and therefore he is little likely to feel or to act any better. But, Judith, I put it to your heart and conscience, would you, Could you think of me as favorably, as I hope and believe you now do? Was I to forget my furlough and not go back to the camp? To think more favorably of you than I do now, Deerslayer, would not be easy. But I might continue to think as favorably. At least it seems so. I hope I could. For a world wouldn't tempt me to let you do anything that might change my real opinion of you. Then don't try to entice me to overlook my furlough. A furlough is a sacred thing among warriors and men that carry their lives in their hands, as we of the forest do. And what a grievous disappointment would it be to old Tamenund, and to Uncas, the father of the serpent, and to my other friends in the tribe, if I was so to disgrace myself on my very first warpath. This you will perceive, moreover, Judith, as without laying any stress on natural gifts and a settler's duties, to say nothing of conscience. The last is king with me, and I try never to dispute his orders. I believe you are right, Deerslayer, returned the girl, after a little reflection, and in a saddened voice. A man like you ought not to act as the selfish and dishonest would be apt to act. You must, indeed, go back. We will talk no more of this, then. Should I persuade you to anything for which you would be sorry hereafter, my own regret would not be less than yours. You shall not have it to say, Judith. I scarce know by what name to call myself now. Was that not Judith speaking? Oh, it was. When people start all of a sudden speaking in third person, it really confuses me. And why not? Why not, gal? Children take the names of their parents naturally and by a sort of gift. And why shouldn't you and Hetty do as others have done afore ye? Hutter was the old man's name, and Hutter should be the name of his darters, at least until you are given away in lawful and holy wedlock. I am Judith, and Judith only, returned the girl positively, until the law gives me a right to another name. Never will I use that of Thomas Hutter again, nor, with my consent, shall Hetty. Hutter was not even his own name, I find, but had he 1,000 rights to it, it would give none to me. He was not my father, thank heaven, though I may have no reason to be proud of him that was. This is strange, said Deerslayer, looking steadily at the excited girl, anxious to know more, but unwilling to inquire into matters that did not properly concern him. Yes, this is very strange and uncommon. Thomas Hutter wasn't Thomas Hutter, and his daughters weren't his daughters. Who then could Thomas Hutter be, and who are his daughters? Did you never hear anything whispered against the former life of this person, Deerslayer? Demanded Judith. Passing, as I did, for his child, such reports reached even me. I'll not deny it, Judith. No, I'll not deny it. Sartain things have been said, as I've told you, but I'm not very credible as to reports. Young as I am, I've lived long enough to learn there's two sorts of characters in the world. Them that is larned by deeds, and them that is arned by tongues. And so I prefer to see and judge for myself, instead of letting every jaw that chooses to wag become my judgment. Hurry Harry spoke pretty plainly of the whole family as we journeyed this way, and he did hint something concerning Thomas Hutter's having been a free liver on the water in his younger days. By free liver, I mean that he made free to live on other men's goods. He told you he was a pirate. There's no need of mincing matters between friends. Read that, Deerslayer, and you will see that he told you no more than the truth. This Thomas Hovey was the Thomas Hutter you knew, as is seen by these letters. As Judith spoke, with a flushed cheek and eyes dazzling with the brilliancy of excitement, She held the newspaper towards her companion, pointing to the proclamation of a colonial governor, already mentioned. "Bless you, Judith," answered the other, laughing. "You might as well ask me to print that, or, for that matter, to write it. My education has been altogether in the woods. The only book I read, or care about reading, is the one which God has opened afore all his creatures in the noble forests, broad lakes, rolling rivers, blue skies, and the winds and tempests, and sunshine, and other glorious marvels of the land. This book I can read, and I find it full of wisdom and knowledge." "I crave your pardon, Deerslayer," said Judith earnestly, more abashed than was her wont, in finding that she had inadvertently made an appeal that might wound her companion's pride. "I had forgotten your manner of life, and least of all did I wish to hurt your feelings." "Hurt my feelings? Why should it hurt my feelings to ask me to read when I can't read? I'm a hunter, and I may now begin to say a warrior and no missionary, and therefore books and papers are of no account with such as I. No, no, Judith." And here the young man laughed cordially. "Not even for wads, seeing that your true deer-killer always uses the hide of a fawn if he's got one, or some other bit of leather suitably prepared. There's some that do say, all that stands in print is true, in which case I'll own an unlearned man must be somewhat of a loser. Nevertheless, it can't be truer than that which God has printed with his own hand in the sky, and the woods, and the rivers, and the springs." "Well then, Hutter, or Hovey, was a pirate, and being no father of mine, I cannot wish to call him one. His name shall no longer be my name." "If you dislike the name of that man, there's the name of your mother, Judith. Her may sarve you just as good as a turn." "I do not know it. I've looked through those papers, Deerslayer, in the hope of finding some hint of which I might discover who my mother was. But there is no more trace of the past, in that respect, than the bird leaves in the air." "That's both uncommon and unreasonable. Parents are bound to give their offspring a name, even though they give 'em nothing else. Now I come of a humble stock, though we have settler gifts and a settler nature, but we are not so poorly off as to have no name. Bumppo, we are called, and I've heard it said," a touch of human vanity glowing on his cheek, "that the time has been when the Bumppos had been standing and note among mankind than they have just now." "They never deserved them more, Deerslayer, and the name is a good one. Either Hetty or myself would 1,000 times rather be called Hetty Bumppo or Judith Bumppo than to be called Hetty or Judith Hutter." "That's a moral impossible," returned the hunter good-humoredly, "unless one of you should so far demean herself as to marry me." Judith could not refrain from smiling, when she found how simply and naturally the conversation had come round to the very point at which she had aimed to bring it. Although far from unfeminine or forward, either in her feelings or her habits, the girl was goaded by a sense of wrongs not altogether merited, incited by the hopelessness of a future that seemed to contain no resting place, and still more influenced by feelings that were as novel to her as they proved to be active and engrossing. The opening was too good, therefore, to be neglected, though she came to the subject with much of the indirectness and perhaps justifiable address of a woman. "I do not think Hetty will ever marry, Deerslayer," she said, "and if your name is to be borne by either of us, it must be borne by me." "There's been handsome women, too, they tell me, among the Bumppos, Judith, afore now, and should you take up with the name, uncommon as you be in this particular, them that knows the family won't be altogether surprised." "This is not talking as becomes either of us, Deerslayer, for whatever is said on such a subject, between man and woman, should be said seriously and in sincerity of heart. forgetting the shame that ought to keep girls silent until spoken to in most cases. I will deal with you as frankly as I know one of your generous nature will most like to be dealt with. Can you, do you think, Deerslayer, that you could be happy with such a wife as a woman like myself would make? A woman like you, Judith. But where's the sense in trifling about such a thing? A woman like you, as handsome enough to be a captain's lady, and fine enough, and so far as I know educated enough, would be little apt to think of becoming my wife. I suppose young gals that feel themselves to be smart, and know themselves to be handsome, find a sartain satisfaction in passing their jokes again them that's neither, like a poor Delaware hunter. This was said good-naturedly, but not without a betrayal of feeling, which showed that something like mortified sensibility was blended with the reply. Nothing could have occurred more likely to awaken all Judith's generous regrets, or to aid her in her purpose, by adding the stimulant of a disinterested desire to atone to her other impulses, and cloaking all under a guise so winning and natural as greatly to lessen the unpleasant feature of a forwardness unbecoming of the sex. Making that first move, I know, and Deerslayer is like not getting it. He's just bumbling about. I have a low batter that I'm trying to like plug this in without seeing where the... There it is. Hold, please. Hold, please. Hold, please. Thank you for holding. All representatives are busy now. Okay, there we go. You do me injustice if you suppose I have any such thought or wish, she answered earnestly. Never was I more serious in my life, or willing to abide by any agreement that we may make tonight. I have had many suitors, Deerslayer. Nay, scarce an unmarried trapper or hunter has been in at the lake these 4 years, who has not offered to take me away with him, and I fear some that were married too. Aye, I'll warrant that, interrupted the other. I'll warrant all that. Take 'em as a body, Judith. Arth don't hold a set of men more given to theirselves, and less given to God and the law. Not one of them could I listen to. Happily for myself, perhaps, has it been that such was the case. There have been well-looking youths among them, too, as you may have seen in your acquaintance, Henry March. Well, she's being so roundabout of it. Like, it's so funny because she called Hurry out for not ever being straight with her and like asking her directly. And here she is being like, well, I don't think Hetty is ever gonna marry somebody, so if somebody has to take your last name, I guess it has to be me. And he's like, oh, there's other like really pretty ladies in the family, so like it wouldn't be weird, like you wouldn't feel like out of place. Judith. Judith, Judith, Judith. Yes, Harry is sightly to the eye, though, to my ideas, less so to the judgment. I thought, at first, you meant to have him, Judith. I did. But afore he went, it was easy enough to verify that the same lodge wouldn't be big enough for you both. You have done me injustice in that at least, Deerslayer. Harry is a man I could never marry, though he were 10 times more comely to the eye and 100 times more stout of heart than he really is. Why not, Judith? Why not? I own I'm curious to know why a youth like Hurry shouldn't find favor with a maiden like you. Then you shall know, Deerslayer, returned the girl, gladly availing herself of the opportunity of, indirectly extolling the qualities which had so strongly interested her in her listener, hoping by these means covertly to approach the subject nearest her heart. In the first place, looks in a man are of no importance with a woman, provided he is manly, and not disfigured or deformed. So looks do matter, is what you're saying. Enjoy your lurk, mermaid. Mermaid, so good to see you. Nobody has died. Nobody. There's time. There's still time. There, I can't altogether agree with you, returned the other thoughtfully, for he had a very humble opinion of his own personal appearance. I have noticed that the comeliest warriors commonly get the best-looking maidens of the tribe for wives, and the serpent, yonder, who is sometimes wonderful in his paint, is a general favorite with all the Delaware young women, though he takes to Hist himself as if she was the only beauty on earth. It may be so with the natives, but it is different with us. So long as a young man has a straight and manly figure, a straight and manly frame that promises to make him able to protect a woman and to keep want from the door, it is all they ask of the figure. Giants like Hurry may do for grenadiers, but are of little account as lovers. Then as to the face, an honest face, one that answers for the heart within, is of more value than any shape or color, or eyes or teeth, or trifles like them. The last may do for girls, but who thinks of them at all in a hunter, or a warrior, or a husband? If there are women so silly, Judith is not among them. Well, this is wonderful. I always thought that handsome liked handsome, and riches love riches. It may be so with you men, Deerslayer, but it is not always so with us women. We like stout-hearted men, but we wish to see them modest, sure on a hunt or the warpath, ready to die for the right, and unwilling to yield to the wrong. Above all, we wish for honesty, tongues that are not used to say what the mind does not mean, and hearts that feel a little for others as well as for themselves. A true-hearted girl could die for such a husband, while the boaster and the double-tongued suitor gets to be as hateful to the sight as he is to the mind. Judith spoke bitterly, and with her usual force, but her listener was too much struck with the novelty of the sensation he experienced to advert to her manner. There was something so soothing to the humanity of a man of his temperament to hear qualities that he could not but know he possessed himself, thus highly extolled by the loveliest female he had ever beheld, that, for the moment, his faculties seemed suspended in a natural and excusable pride. Then it was all that the idea of the possibility of such a creature as Judith becoming his companion for life first crossed his mind. The image was so pleasant and so novel that he continued completely absorbed by it for more than a minute, totally regardless of the beautiful reality that was seated before him, watching the expression of his upright and truth-telling countenance with a keenness that gave her a very fair, if not an absolutely accurate clue to his thoughts. Never before had so pleasing a vision floated before the mind's eye of the young hunter, but, accustomed most to practical things, and little addicted to submitting to the power of his imagination, even while possessed of so much true poetical feeling in connection with natural objects in particular, he soon recovered his reason, and smiled at his own weakness, as the fancied picture faded from his mental sight, and left him the simple, untaught, but highly moral being he was, seated in the ark of Thomas Hutter, at midnight, with the lovely countenance of its late owner's reputed daughter beaming on him with anxious scrutiny, by the light of the solitary lamp. Thank you so much for the follow. Welcome in. You are wonderful, handsome, and enticing, and pleasing to look on, Judith, he exclaimed in his simplicity, as fact resumed its ascendancy over fancy. Wonderful. I don't remember ever to have seen so beautiful a gal even among the Delawares, and I'm not astonished that Hurry Harry went away soured as well as disappointed. Would you have had me, Deerslayer, become the wife of such a man as Henry March? There's that which is in favor, and there's that which is again him. To my taste, Hurry wouldn't make the best of husbands, but I fear that the tastes of most young women hereaway wouldn't be so hard upon him. No, no, Judith without a name could never consent to be called Judith March. Anything would be better than that. Judith Bumppo wouldn't sound as well, gal, and there's many names that would fall short of March in pleasing the ear. Oh, Deerslayer, the pleasantness of the sound, in such cases, doesn't come through the air, but through the heart. Everything is agreeable when the heart is satisfied. Were Natty Bumppo, Henry March, and Henry March, Natty Bumppo, I might think the name of March better than it is, or were he, you, I should fancy the name of Bumppo horrible. Name limit, hello, good to see you. That's just it. Yes, that's the reason of the matter. Now, I'm naturally averse to serpents, and I hate even the word which the missionaries tell me comes from human nature, on account of a certain serpent at the creation of the earth that outwitted the first woman. Yet, ever since Chingachgook has earned the title he bears, why the sound of is as pleasant to my ears as the whistle of the whippoorwill of a calm evening. It is. The feelings make all the difference in the world, Judith, in a nature of sounds, aye, even in that of looks, too. Saw on YouTube, so came over. It's good to have you. This is so true, Deerslayer, and I am surprised you should think it remarkable a girl, who may have some comeliness herself, should not think it necessary that her husband should have the same advantage, or what you fancy an advantage. To me, looks in a man is nothing provided his countenance be as honest as his heart. Yes, honesty is a great advantage in the long run, and they that are the most apt to forget it in the beginning are the most apt to learn it in the end. Nevertheless, there's more, Judith, that look to present profit than to the benefit that is to come after a time. One they think a certainty, and the other an uncertainty. I'm glad, as ever, that you look at the thing in its true light and not in the way in which so many is apt to deceive themselves. I do thus look at it, Deerslayer, returned the girl with emphasis, still shrinking with a woman's sensitiveness from a direct offer of her hand, and can say, from the bottom of my heart, that I would rather trust my happiness to a man whose truth and feelings may be depended on, than to a false-tongued and false-hearted wretch that had chests of gold and houses and lands, yes, though he were even seated on a throne. These are brave words, Judith. They're downright brave words. But do you think that the feelings would keep 'em company? Did the chise actually lie afore you? If a gay gallant in a scarlet coat stood on one side, with his head smelling like a deer's foot, his face smooth and blooming as your own, his hands as white and soft as if God hadn't bestowed 'em, that man might live by the sweat of his brow, and his step as lofty as dancing teachers and a light heart could make it. And the other side stood one that has passed his days in the open air till his forehead is as red as his cheek, had cut his way through swamps and bushes till his hand was as rugged as the oaks he slept under, had trodden on the scent of game till his step was as stealthy as the catamounts, and had no other pleasant odor about him than such as nature gives in the free air and the forest. Now, if both these men stood here as suitors for your feelings, which do you think would win your favor? Judith's fine face flushed, for the picture that her companion had so simply drawn of a gay officer of the garrison had once been particularly grateful to her imagination, though experience and disappointment had not only chilled all her affections, but given them a backward current, and the passing image had a momentary influence on her feelings. But the mounting color was succeeded by a paleness so deadly as to make her appear ghastly. "As God is my judge," the girl solemnly answered, "did both these men stand before me, as I may say one of them does, my choice, if I know my own heart, would be the latter. I have no wish for a husband who is any way better than myself." This is pleasant to listen to, and might lead a young man in time to forget his own unworthiness, Judith. Howsever, you hardly think all that you say. A man like me is too rude and ignorant for one that has had such a mother to teach her. Vanity is natural, I do believe, but vanity like that would surpass reason. Then you do not know of what a woman's heart is capable. Rude you are not, Deerslayer, nor can one be called ignorant that has studied what is before his eyes as closely as you have done. When the affections are concerned, all things appear in their pleasantest colors, and trifles are overlooked or are forgotten. When the heart feels sunshine, nothing is gloomy, even dull-looking objects seeming gay and bright, and so it would be between you and the woman who should love you, even though your wife might happen, in some matters, to possess what the world calls the advantage over you. Thank you for the hydrate. We're so close. We're so close to the end of the chapter. Thank you. Judith, you come of people altogether above mine, in the world, and on equal matches, like on equal friendships, can't often terminate kindly. I speak of this matter altogether as a fanciful thing, since it's not very likely that you, at least, would be apt to treat it as a matter that can ever come to pass. Judith fastened her deep blue eyes on the open, frank countenance of her companion, as if she would read his soul. Nothing there betrayed any covert meaning, and she was obliged to admit to herself that he regarded the conversation as argumentative rather than positive, and that he was still without any active suspicion that her feelings were seriously involved in the issue. First, she felt offended. Then she saw the injustice of making the self-abasement and modesty of the hunter a charge against him, and this novel difficulty gave piquancy to the state of affairs that rather increased her interest in the young man. At the critical instant, a change of plan flashed on her mind, with a readiness of invention that is peculiar to the quick-witted and ingenious. She adopted a scheme by which she hoped effectually to bind him to her person. This scheme partook equally of her fertility of invention and of the decision and boldness of her character. That the conversation might not terminate too abruptly, however, or any suspicion of her design exist, she answered the last remark of Deerslayer as earnestly and as truly as if her original intention remained unaltered. "I certainly have no reason to boast of parentage after what I have seen this night," said the girl, in a saddened voice. "I had a mother, it is true, but of her name even I am ignorant. And, as for my father, it is better, perhaps, that I should never know who he was, lest I speak too bitterly of him." "Judith," said Deerslayer, taking her hand kindly and with a manly sincerity that went directly to the girl's heart. "'Tis better to say no more tonight. Sleep on what you've seen and felt. In the morning, things that now look gloomy may look more cheerful. Above all, never do anything in bitterness, or because you feel as if you'd like to take revenge on yourself for other people's backslidings. All that has been said or done atween us this night is your secret, and shall never be talked of by me, even with the sarpent, and you may be sartain if he can't get it out of me, no man can. If your parents have been faulty, let the darter be no less. Let the darter be less so. Remember that you're young, and the youthful may always hope for better times. That you're more quick-witted than usual, and such generally get the better of difficulties, and that, as for beauty, you're uncommon, which is an advantage with all. It is time to get a little rest, for tomorrow is like to prove a trying day to some of us." Deerslayer arose as he spoke, and Judith had no choice but to comply. The chest was closed and secured, and they parted in silence. She to take her place by the side of Hist and Hetty, and he to seek a blanket on the floor of the cabin he was in. It was not 5 minutes ere the young man was in a deep sleep, but the girl continued awake for a long time. She scarce knew whether to lament or to rejoice at having failed in making herself understood. On the one hand, were her womanly sensibilities spared. On the other was the disappointment of defeated, or at least of delayed expectations, and the uncertainty of a future that looked so dark. Then came the new resolution, and the bold project for the morrow. And when drowsiness finally shut her eyes, they closed on a scene of success and happiness that was pictured by the fancy, under the influence of a sanguine temperament and a happy invention. End of chapter 24. This was all one day. All one day of when Papa died, they buried him. She forced Hurry to plainly propose to her, and she denied him. Deerslayer came back, asked everybody a question because he's on furlough, and then this chapter. All right, so this chapter, Judith knows that the information that she doesn't have it. Well, she has a dad, but she doesn't know who it is. And Floating Tom told her to look in the chest, and that's where the answers would be. So she goes in there and she takes 2 hours reading over these letters between her mom and Hutter, who is actually Thomas Hovey. And any time, like, an address would be there, it's not. Anytime her actual father's name would be there, it's erased or removed so completely that she has no answers. She got no answers from any of this. So she is not claiming Hutter's name, and she's not claiming any name. She's just going as Judith, like Madonna or Cher or Beyonce. Just Judith. However, she would dig the last name of a certain Deerslayer, and Deerslayer is with her as she's going through all of these things, and she's like, "I don't think I need a last name." And he's like, "Oh, well, you would have taken March's last name." And she's like, I don't think that Judith March sounds great. And he's like, and then he goes on about, like, his own last name, Bumppo, and the Bumppo family, and is just like in his own world, not picking up because she's being so opaque in what she actually wants him for, wants him to ask, wants him to like get on the same page with her. And which is like, "You're cute, we should be together." And he's not really getting it. And there's even a point where he has a realization of being like, "Oh wait, maybe it is possible Like her description is maybe saying like it is possible for me to be somebody that is like Judith. And that's where we leave it. She's gonna do something like rash or whatever, and he's like, don't do that, just go to sleep. And so he's like, some of us have a big day tomorrow. And so he instantly goes to sleep. He's had a big day. Judith has also had a big day, but now she's like staying awake, just thinking on her thoughts. And that was the chapter. And we did have the word expedient, so you should have received your channel points if you got it. Judith Slayer. Bumppo is such a ridiculously goofy name. Truly, truly. Like, who is like, I'm gonna take that last name. That's the last name for me. Judith, be real with us. You don't want that last name. It's more goofy than the name Goofy. Mm-mm-mm. It's like Judith Clown Car Boop Boop. She just needs sleep. She's had a rough day. It's been so brutal for her that she even thinks that Judith Bumppo would sound good. Girl, go to bed. All right. Let's we'll take a bio break, but before we go, let's set up our next prediction. It's going to be the same thing. Are we going to say the word expedient or expedience? Is it going to show up? It'll be the same. It'll be the same because it showed up this last time, and it didn't show up at all last time we read. Interesting. We need a can break. You get it. All right, so we'll do 5 minutes. So throw in channel points if you want. Will the word expedient or expedience show up? There's a typo. There we go. Okay. All right. I'm going to take a bio break. We'll be right back. We're back. We're back. I think I like bit the inside of my lip because now I just feel like you know how you can just kind of like feel it? I think I like bit the inside of my lip a little bit. So now I have to be like really careful so I don't keep biting it. That's the worst when you like bite like your cheek or your lip or something and then it gets swollen so that you keep biting it and then it just keeps getting more like aggressive. Just having a good old chomp. That's all. That's all. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Let's see. Chapter 25. This will be our only other chapter tonight. It's a long one. Or your tongue. Oh, yeah. Biting your tongue and like burning your tongue. Especially if you're having like something like hot to drink, like a hot chocolate or like a coffee or something, and it's the first sip. I hate that. I hate it. Uh, Chapter 25. We'll see if we say the word expedient. We'll see. But, mother, now a shade has passed. Athwart my brightest visions here, a cloud of darkest gloom has wrapped the remnant of my brief career. No song, no echo can I win. The sparkling font has died within. Margaret Davidson, to my mother, 11, lines 7 through 12. Hist and Hetty arose with the return of light, leaving Judith still buried in sleep. It took but a minute for the first to complete her toilet. Her long, coal-black hair was soon adjusted in a simple knot, the calico dress belted tight to her slender waist, and her little feet concealed in their gaudily ornamented moccasins. When tired, she left her companion employed in household affairs, and went herself on the platform to breathe the pure air of the morning. Here she found Chingachgook studying the shores of the lake, the mountains, and the heavens, with the sagacity of a man of the woods and the gravity of a native. The meeting between the two lovers was simple but affectionate. The chief showed a manly kindness, equally removed from boyish weakness and haste, while the girl betrayed, in her smile and half-averted eyes, the bashful tenderness of her sex. Neither spoke, unless it were with the eyes, though each understood the other as fully as if a vocabulary of words and protestations had been poured out. Hist seldom appeared to more advantage than at that moment, for just from her rest and ablutions there was a freshness about her youthful form and face that the toils of the wood do not always permit to be exhibited by even the juvenile and pretty. Then Judith had not only imparted some of her own skill in the toilet during their short intercourse, but she had actually bestowed a few well-selected ornaments from her own stores that contributed not a little to set off the natural graces of the indigenous maid. All this the lover saw and felt, and for a moment his countenance was illuminated with a look of pleasure, but it soon grew grave again, and became saddened and anxious. The stools used the previous night were still standing on the platform. Placing two against the walls of the hut, he seated himself on one, making a gesture to his companion to take the other. This done, he continued thoughtful and silent for quite a minute, maintaining the reflecting dignity of one born to take his seat at the council fire, while Hist was furtively watching the expression of his face, patient and submissive as became a woman of her people. Then the young warrior stretched his arm before her, as if to point out the glories of the scene at that witching hour, when the whole panorama, as usual, was adorned by the mellow distinctness of early morning, sweeping with his hand slowly over lake, hills, and heavens. The girl followed the movement with pleased wonder, smiling as each new beauty met her gaze. "Hmm," exclaimed the chief, in admiration of a scene so unusual even to him, for this was the first lake he had ever beheld. "This is the country of the Manitou. It is too good for Mingo's, Hist. but the curs of that tribe are howling in packs through the woods. They think that the Delawares are asleep over the mountains. All but one of them is, Chingachgook. There is one here, and he is of the blood of Uncas. What is one warrior against a tribe? The path to our village is very long and crooked, and we shall travel it under a cloudy sky. I am afraid, too, honeysuckle of the hills, that we shall travel it alone. Hist understood the allusion, and it made her sad, though it sounded sweet to her ears to be compared, by the warrior she so loved, to the most fragrant and the pleasantest of all the wild flowers of her native woods. Still, she continued silent, as became her when the allusion was to a grave interest that men could best control, though it exceeded the power of education to conceal the smile that gratified feeling brought to her pretty mouth. When the sun is thus, continued the Delaware, pointing to the zenith, by simply casting forward a hand and finger, by a play of the wrist, the great hunter of our tribe will go back to the Hurons to be treated like a bear, that they roast and skin, even on full stomachs. The Great Spirit may soften their hearts, and not suffer them to be so bloody-minded. I have lived among the Hurons and know them. They have hearts, and will not forget their own children, should they fall into the hands of the Delawares. A wolf is forever howling. A hog will always eat. They have lost warriors. Even their women will call out for vengeance. The settler has the eyes of an eagle, and can see into a Mingo's heart. He looks for no mercy. There is a cloud over his spirit, though it is not before his face. A long, thoughtful pause succeeded, during which Hist stealthily took the hand of the chief, as if seeking his support, though she scarce ventured to raise her eyes to a countenance that was now literally becoming terrible, under the conflicting passions and stern resolution that were struggling in the breast of its owner. "What will the son of Uncas do?" the girl at length timidly asked. "He is a chief, and is already celebrated in council, though so young. What does his heart tell him is wisest? Does the head, too, speak the same words as the heart?" "What does Watawa say, at a moment when my dearest friend is in such danger? The smallest birds sing the sweetest. It is always pleasant to hearken to their songs. I wish I could hear the wren of the woods in my difficulty. Its note would reach deeper than the ear." Again, Hist experienced the profound gratification that the language of praise can always awaken when uttered by those we love. The honeysuckle of the hills was a term often applied to the girl by the young men of the Delawares, though it never sounded so sweet in her ears as from the lips of Chingachgook, but the latter alone had ever styled her the wren of the woods. With him, however, it had got to be a familiar phrase, and it was past expression pleasant to the listener, since it conveyed to her mind the idea that her advice and sentiments were as acceptable to her future husband as the tones of her voice and modes of conveying them were agreeable, uniting the two things most prized by an indigenous girl, as coming from her betrothed, admiration for a valued physical advantage with respect for her opinion. She pressed the hand she held between both her own and answered. "Watawa says that neither she nor the great serpent could ever laugh again, or ever sleep without dreaming of the Hurons, should the Deerslayer die under the Mingo tomahawk, and they do nothing to save him. She would rather go back and start on her long path alone than let such a dark cloud pass before her happiness." "Good. The husband and the wife will have but one heart. They will see with the same eyes and feel with the same feeling. What further was said need not be related here. That the conversation was of Deerslayer and his hopes has been seen already. But the decision that was come to will better appear in the course of the narrative. The youthful pair were yet conversing when the sun appeared above the tops of the pines, and the light of a brilliant American day streamed down into the valley, bathing in deep joy the lake, the forests, and the mountainsides. Just at this instant, Deerslayer came out of the cabin of the Ark and stepped upon the platform. His first look was at the cloudless heavens. Then his rapid glance took in the entire panorama of land and water, when he had leisure for a friendly nod at his friends and a cheerful smile for Hist. "Well," he said, in his usual composed manner and pleasant voice, "he that sees the sun set in the west and wakes early enough in the morning will be sartain to find him comin' back again in the east, like a buck that is hunted round his hant. I dare say now, Hist, you've beheld this, time and again, and yet it never entered into your gallish mind to ask the reason?" Both Chingachgook and his betrothed looked up at the luminary, with an air that betokened sudden wonder, and then they gazed at each other, as if to seek the solution of the difficulty. Familiarity deadens the sensibilities, even as connected with the gravest natural phenomena, and never before had these simple beings thought of inquiring into a movement that was of daily occurrence, however puzzling it might appear on investigation. When the subject was thus suddenly started, it struck both alike, and at the same time, with some such force as any new and brilliant proposition in the natural sciences would strike the scholar. Chingachgook alone saw fit to answer. "Settlers know everything," he said. "Can they tell us why the sun hides his face when he goes back at night?" "Aye, that is downright native larning," returned the other, laughing, though he was not altogether insensible to the pleasure of proving the superiority of his race by solving the difficulty, which he set about doing in his own peculiar manner. "Hark ye, Sarpent," he continued more gravely, though too simply for affectation, "this is easily explained than an indigenous brain may fancy. The sun, while he seems to keep traveling in the heavens, never budges, but it is the earth that turns round, and anyone can understand, if he is placed on the side of a mill wheel, for instance, when it's in motion, that he must sometimes see the heavens while he is at other times under water. There's no great secret in that, but plain nature, the difficulty being in setting the earth in motion." "How does my brother know that the earth turns round?" demanded the Delaware. "Can he see it?" "Well, that's been a puzzler, I will own, Delaware, for I've often tried but never could fairly make it out. Sometimes I've conceited that I could, and then again I've been obliged to own it in impossibility. Hows'ever, turn it does, as all my people say, and you ought to believe 'em, since they can foretell eclipses and other prodigies that used to fill the tribes with terror, according to your own traditions of such things." "Good. This is true. No native will deny it. When a wheel turns, my eyes can see it. They do not see the earth turn." "Aye, that's what I call sense obstinacy. Seeing is believing, they say, and what they can't see, some men won't in the least give credit to. Nevertheless, Chief, that isn't quite as good reason as it mayn't at first seem. You believe in the Great Spirit, I know, and yet, I conclude, it would puzzle you to show where you see him." "Chingachgook can see him everywhere. Everywhere in good things, the evil spirit in bad. Here in the lake, there in the forest, Yonder, in the clouds, in Hist, in the son of Uncas, in Tannemond, in Deerslayer. The evil spirit is in the Mingos. That I see. I do not see the earth turn round. I don't wonder they call you the Serpent, Delaware. No, I don't. There's always a meaning in your words, and there's often a meaning in your countenance, too. Notwithstanding, your answers doesn't quite meet my idea. That God is observable in all natural objects is allowable, but then he is not perceptible in the way I mean. You know there is a great spirit by his works, and the settlers know that the earth turns round by its works. This is the reason of matter, though how it is to be explained is more than I can exactly tell you. This I know. All my people can state that fact, and what all the settlers can state is very likely to be true. When the sun is in the top of that pine tomorrow, where will my brother Deerslayer be? The hunter started, and he looked intently, though totally without alarm, at his friend. Then he sighed. Then he signed for him to follow, and led the way into the ark, where he might pursue the subject unheard by those whose feelings he feared might get the mastery over their reason. Here he stopped, and pursued the conversation in a more confidential tone. "'Twas a little unreasonable in you, Sarpent," he said, "to bring up such a subject afore Hist, and when the young women might overhear what was said. Yes, 'twas a little more unreasonable than most things that you do. No matter. Hist didn't comprehend, and the other didn't hear. Howsoever, the question is easier put than answered. No mortal can say where he will be when the sun rises tomorrow. I will ask you the same question, Sarpent, and should like to hear what answer you can give. Chingachgook will be with his friend, Deerslayer, if he be in the land of spirits. The great serpent will crawl at his side. If beneath yonder sun, its warmth and light shall fall on both." "I understand you, Delaware," returned the other, touched with the simple self-devotion of his friend. "Such language is as plain in one tongue as in another. It comes from the heart, and goes to the heart, too. 'Tis well to think so, and it may be well to say so, for that matter. But it will not be well to do so, Sarpent. You are no longer alone in life, for though you have the lodges to change and other ceremonies to go through, afore Hist becomes your lawful wife, yet are you as good as married in all that bears on the feelings and joy and misery? No. No, Hist must not be deserted, because a cloud is passing atween you and me, a little unexpectedly, and a little darker than we may have looked for. Hist is a daughter of the Mohicans. She knows how to obey her husband. Where he goes, she will follow. Both will be with the great hunter of the Delawares, when the sun shall be in the pine tomorrow. The Lord bless and protect you, Chief. This is downright madness. Can either, or both of you, alter a Mingo nature? Will your grand looks, or Hist's tears and beauty, change a wolf into a squirrel, or make a catamount as innocent as a fawn? No, Sarpent. You will think better of this matter and leave me in the hands of God. After all, it's by no means sartain that the scamps design the torments, for they may yet be pitiful, and bethink them of the wickedness of such a course, though it is but a hopeless expectation to look forward to a Mingo's turning aside from evil, and letting Marcy get uppermost in his heart. Nevertheless, no one knows to a certainty what will happen, and young creatures like Hist ain't to be risked on uncertainties. This marrying is altogether a different undertaking from what some young men fancy. Now, if you was single, or as good as single, Delaware, I would expect you to be active and stirring about the camp of the vagabonds from sunrise to sunset, circumventing and contriving, as restless as a hound off the scent, and doing all manner of things to help me, and to distract the enemy. But two are oftener feebler than one, and we must take things as they are, and not as we want 'em to be. Listen, Deerslayer, returned the Delaware, with an emphasis so decided as to show how much he was in earnest. If Chingachgook was in the hands of the Huron, what would my brother do? Sneak off to the Delaware villages and say to the chiefs, the old men and young warriors, "See, here is Watawa. She is safe, but a little tired. And here is the son of Uncas, not as tired as the honeysuckle, being stronger, but just as safe." Would he do this? Well, that's uncommon ingenious. It's cunning enough for a Mingo himself. The Lord only knows what put it into your head to ask such a question. What would I do? Why, in the first place, Hist wouldn't be likely to be in my company at all, for she would stay as near you as possible, and therefore all that part about her couldn't be said without talking nonsense. As for her being tired, that would fall through, too, if she didn't go, and no part of your speech would be likely to come for me. So, you see, Sarpent, reason is again you, and you may as well give it up, since to hold out again reason is no way becoming a chief of your character and reputation. My brother is not himself. He forgets that he is talking to one who has sat at the council fire of his nation, returned the other kindly. When men speak, they should say that which does not go in at one side of the head and out at the other. Their words shouldn't be feathers, so light that a wind which does not ruffle the water can blow them away. He has not answered my question. When a chief puts a question, his friend should not talk of other things. I understand you, Delaware. I understand well enough that what you mean, and truth won't allow me to say otherwise. Still, it's not as easy to answer as you seem to think, for this plain reason. You wish me to say what I would do if I had a betrothed as you have, here, on the lake, and a friend yonder in the Huron camp, in danger of the torments. That's it, isn't it? Delaware bowed his head silently and always with unmoved gravity, though his eye twinkled at the sight of the other's embarrassment. Well, I never had a betrothed. Never had the kind of feelings toward any young woman that you have towards Hist, though the Lord knows my feelings are kind enough towards 'em all. Still, my heart, as they call it in such matters, isn't touched, and therefore I can't say what I would do. A friend pulls strong, that I know by experience, Sarpent. But, by all that I've seen and heard concerning love, I'm led to think that a betrothed pulls stronger. True, but the betrothed of Chingachgook does not pull towards the lodges of the Delaware. She pulls towards the camp of the Hurons. She's a noble gal, for all her little feet and hands that ain't bigger than a child's, and a voice that is as pleasant as a mocker's. She's a noble gal, and like the stock of her sires. Well, what is it, Sarpent? For I conclude she hasn't changed her mind and means to give herself up and turn Huron wife. What is it you want? Watawa will never live in the wigwam of an Iroquois, answered the Delaware dryly. She has little feet, but they can carry her to the villages of her people. She has small hands, too, but her mind is large. My brother will see what we can do when the time shall come, rather than let him die under Mingo torments. Attempt nothing heedlessly, Delaware, said the other earnestly. I suppose you must and will have your way, and on the whole it's right you should, for you'd neither be happy unless something was undertaken. But attempt nothing heedlessly. I didn't expect you to quit the lake while my matter remained in uncertainty. But remember, Serpent, that no torments that Mingo ingenuity can invent, no taintins and revilins, no burnins and roastins and nail tearins, nor any other unhuman contrivances can so soon break down my spirit as to find that you and Hist have fallen into the power of the enemy in striving to do something for my good. The Delawares are prudent. The Deerslayer will not find them running into a strange camp with their eyes shut. Here the dialogue terminated. Hetty announced that the breakfast was ready, and the whole party was soon seated around the simple board, in the usual primitive manner of boarders. Judith was the last to take her seat, pale, silent, and betraying in her countenance that she had passed a painful, if not a sleepless, night. At this meal scarce a syllable was exchanged, all the females manifesting want of appetites, though the two men were unchanged in this particular. It was easy when the party arose, and there still remained several hours before it would be necessary for the prisoner to leave his friends. The knowledge of the circumstance, and the interest all felt in his welfare, induced the whole to assemble on the platform again, in the desire to be near the expected victim, to listen to his discourse, and if possible, to show their interest in him by anticipating his wishes. Deerslayer, himself, so far as human eyes could penetrate, was wholly unmoved, conversing cheerfully and naturally, though he avoided any direct allusions to the expected and great event of the day. If any evidence could be discovered of his thoughts reverting to that painful subject at all, it was in the manner in which he spoke of death and the last great change. "Grieve not, Hetty," he said, for it was while consoling this simple-minded girl for the loss of her parents that he thus betrayed his feelings, since God has appointed that all must die. Your parents, or them you fancied your parents, which is the same thing, have gone afore you. This is only in the order of nature, my good girl, for the aged go first, and the young follow. But one that had a mother like your'n, Hetty, can be at no loss to hope the best, as to how matters will turn out in another world. The Delaware here, and Hist, believe in happy hunting grounds, and have ideas befitting their notions and gifts as natives. But we who are of settler blood hold altogether to a different doctrine. Still, I rather conclude our heaven is their land of spirits, and that the path which leads to it will be traveled by all alike. 'Tis impossible for the wicked to enter on it, I will allow, but friends can scarce be separated, though they are not of the same race on earth. Keep up your spirits, poor Hetty, and look forward to the day when you will meet your mother again, and that without pain or sorrowing." "I do expect to see mother," returned the truth-telling and simple girl. "But what will become of father?" "That's a nonplusser, Delaware," said the hunter, in the indigenous dialect. "Yes, that is a downright nonplusser. The muskrat was not a saint on earth, and it's fair to guess he'll not be much of one hereafter. Hows'ever, Hetty," dropping into the English by an easy transition, "hows'ever, Hetty, we must all hope for the best. That is wisest, and it is much the easiest to the mind, if one can only do it. I recommend it to you, trusting to God and putting down all misgivings and faint-hearted feelings. It's wonderful, Judith, how different people have different notions about the future, some fancying one change, and some fancying another. I've known white teachers that have taught all spirit hereafter, and them, again, that believed the body will be transported to another world, much as the natives themselves imagine, and that we shall walk about in the flesh, and know each other, and talk together, and be friends there as we've been friends here.
Which of these opinions is most pleasing to you, Deerslayer?
Asked the girl, willing to indulge his melancholy mood, and far from being free from its influence herself.
Would it be disagreeable to think that you should meet all who are now on this platform in another world? Or have you known enough of us here to be glad to see us no more?
The last would make death a bitter portion. Yes, it would. It's 8 good years since the serpent and I began to hunt together, and the thought that we were never to meet again would be a hard thought to me. He looks forward to the time when he shall chase a sort of spirit deer in company, on plains where there's no thorns or brambles or marshes or other hardships to come. Whereas I can't fall into all these notions, seeing that they appear to be again reason. Spirits can't eat, nor have they any use for clothes, and deer can only rightly be chased to be slain, or slain, unless it be for the venison or the hides. Now, I find it hard to suppose that blessed spirits can be put to chasing game without an object, tormenting the dumb animals just for the pleasure and agreeableness of their own amusements. I never yet pulled a trigger on buck or doe, Judith, unless when food or clothes was wanting. Recollection of which, Deerslayer, must now be a great consolation to you. It is the thought of such things, my friends, that enables a man to keep his furlough. It might be done without it, I own. For the worst enemies sometimes do their duty in this manner. But it makes that which might otherwise be hard, easy, if not altogether to our liking. Nothing truly makes a bolder heart than a light conscience. Judith turned paler than ever, but she struggled for self-command and succeeded in obtaining it. The conflict had been severe, however, and it left her so little disposed to speak that Hetty pursued the subject. This was done in a simpler manner, natural to the girl. But Autumn, I didn't see you come in. Hi. Thank you so much for the 3 streak. Just heading home from watching Spider-Man. How was it? The previews looked good. I haven't seen the full preview because I feel like they put so many things in there and I don't want any spoilers. But the little snippets of preview that I've seen looked good. Oh gosh. Oh heavens. Spoilers abound. I know. It seems like that's all that trailers are now. Is just spoiling everything. Mm-mm-mm. You've been hearing a lot of good things so far. Okay, great. That brings me joy. Because this is the 3rd one, right? Which means it's going to be the end. Yeah. Loved it. Don't watch most of the trailers. Okay, cool. The 4th one. Oh, the 4th one? Oh, yeah, you're right. The whole movie in 2.5 minutes. I don't want that. Exactly. I don't want it. I won't watch any. I've been mostly avoiding them anyway. Or like if I see one like come up like in an ad, I just like look away. I run away and scream. There's an actor that made you go, my boy. Amazing. The 4th one. Okay. For some reason, I was only thinking 3. I think maybe because with Tobey Maguire, it was only 3, right? Or is that also 4? You know, Tobey Maguire. Toby had 3. Toby had 3. Andrew Garfield only had 1, right? He had 2. I don't know. Clearly, I don't know any of them. But I'm pretty sure I've seen all of them. I think I just merge all of them together. I think that's what it is. I think like when it's like a multiple movie, I'm just like this is like the full completed story, so then I don't remember like which happened in which. I don't know. I don't know. Spider-Verse has 2, but 3 is coming. Oh, well that's nice. I like the Spider-Verse ones. Those are fun. And I have seen them. I don't remember where it ended though. They were all in the yes. Yes. You're right, Pulse. They were. They were. Because they like threw in the like Spider-Verse. Yeah. It's so confusing. Yeah. Toby was supposed to get a 4th movie, but got canceled in 2010 in favor of the Amazing Spider-Man movies. Interesting. He got canceled. A Spider-Man movie was canceled for a Spider-Man movie. Got it. Got it. I read that, Duddy, as Abe Froman. That's not what it says. But I was like, oh yeah, Abe Froman, the Sausage King of Chicago. That's not what it says. Only because Sam Raimi was supposed to work on Spider-Man 4, but hated all of the scripts that was given to him. That makes sense. That makes sense. All right, another sip. We haven't said expedient yet. We'll get there. Maybe. Hmm. It says she. Okay, talking about Christians. It's heady. Raimi was burned out after the difficult production of Spider-Man 3. That makes sense. That does make sense. Sam Raimi. Okay, I thought that I saw him for Send Help. I thought that I saw his name involved in that. I haven't watched it yet, but I do want to. I think we talked about this. A couple people in my family thought that it was a comedy and were very much surprised that it was a horror. You loved Send Help? Okay, great. That makes me happy. Look, please, just say it. Please. It could be a comedy at times. The Evil Dead series, yeah.
It would be cruel to kill the poor deer, she said. In this world or any other, when you don't want their venison or their skins. No good settler and no good native would do it. But it's wicked for a Christian to talk about chasing anything in heaven. Such things are not done before the face of God, and the missionary that teaches these doctrines can't be a true missionary. He must be a wolf in sheep's clothing. I suppose you know what a sheep is, Deerslayer. That I do, gal, and a useful creature it is, to such as like cloths better than skins for winter garments. I understand the nature of sheep. I under I understand the nature of sheep, though I've had but little to do with them, and the nature of wolves, too, and can take the idea of a wolf in the fleece of a sheep, though I think it would be like to prove a hot jacket for such a beast in the warm months. And sin and hypocrisy are hot jackets, as they will find who put them on, returned Hetty, positively. So the wolf would be no worse off than the sinner. Spirits don't hunt, nor trap, nor fish, nor do anything that vain men undertake, since they've none of the longings of this world to feed. Oh, mother told me all that years ago, and I don't wish to hear it denied. Well, my good Hetty, in that case,
you'd better not broach your doctrine to Hist, when she and you are alone, and the young Delaware maiden is inclined to talk religion. It's her fixed idea, I know, that the good warriors do nothing but hunt and fish in the other world, though I don't believe that she fancies any of them are brought down to trapping, which is no employment for the brave. But of hunting and fishing, according to her notion, they've their fill, and that, too, over the most agreeablest hunting grounds, and among game that is never out of season, and which is just active and instinctive enough to give a pleasure to death. So I wouldn't recommend it to you to start Hist on that idea.
Hist can't be so wicked as to believe any such thing, returned the other earnestly. No native hunts after he is dead.
No wicked native, I grant you. No wicked native, certainly. He is obliged to carry the ammunition, and to look on without sharing in the sport, and to cook, and to light the fires, and to do everything that isn't manful. Now, mind, I don't tell you these are my ideas, but they are Hist's ideas, and therefore, for the sake of peace, the less you say to her again 'em, the better.
And what are your ideas of the fate of a native in the other world?
Oh, that was supposed to be Judith. For giving you some Spider-Man socks at the screening? Okay, well, that's cool. I want Spider-Man socks. That's amazing. And what are your ideas of the fate of a native in the other world? Demanded Judith, who had just found her voice. Ah, gal, anything but that. I am too Christianized to expect anything so fanciful as hunting and fishing after death, nor do I believe there is one Manitou for the native and another for the settler. You find different colors on Arth, as anyone may see, but you don't find different natures, different gifts, but only one nature. And what is a gift different from a nature? Is not nature itself a gift from God? Sartain. That's quick-thoughted and creditable, Judith, though the main idea is wrong. And nature is the creature itself. Its wishes, wants, ideas, and feelings, as all are born in him. This nature never can be changed in the main, though it may undergo some increase or lessening. Now, gifts come of circumstances. Thus, if you put a man in a town, he gets town gifts. In a settlement, settlement gifts. In a forest, gifts of the woods. A soldier has soldierly gifts and a missionary preaching gifts. All these increase and strengthen until they get to fortify nature as it might be, and excuse 1,000 acts and ideas. Still, the creature is the same at the bottom, just as a man who is clad in regimentals is the same as the man who is clad in skins. The garments make a change to the eye, and some change in the conduct, perhaps, but none in the man. Herein lies the apology for gifts, seeing that you expect different conduct from one in skills and satins, from one in homespun, though the Lord, who didn't make the dresses, but who made the creatures themselves, looks only at his own work. This isn't real missionary doctrine, but it's as near it as a man of white color need be. Ah's me, little did I think to be talking of such matters today, but it's one of our weaknesses, never to know what will come to pass. Step into the ark with me, Judith, for a minute. I wish to converse with you. Judith complied with a willingness she could scarce conceal. Following the hunter into the cabin, she took a seat on a stool, while the young man brought Killdeer, the rifle she had given him, out of a corner, and placed himself on another, with the weapon laid upon his knees. After turning the piece round and examining its lock and its breech with a sort of affectionate assiduity, there it is, with a sort of affectionate assiduity, He laid it down and proceeded to the subject which had induced him to desire the interview. "I understand you, Judith, to say that you gave me this rifle," he said. "I agreed to take it because a young woman can have no particular use for firearms. The weapon has a great name, and it deserves it, and ought of right to be carried by some known and sure hand, for the best reputation may be lost by careless and thoughtless handling." "Can it be in better hands than those in which it is now, Deerslayer? Thomas Hutter seldom missed with it, and you must turn out to be—"
"Sartain death," interrupted the hunter, laughing. "I once knowed a beaver man that had a piece he called by that very name, but 'twas all boastful, for I've seen Delawares that were as true with arrows as at a short range. Howsever, I'll not deny my gifts, for this is a gift, Judith, and not nature. But I'll not deny my gifts, and therefore allow that the rifle couldn't well be in better hands than it is at present. How long will it be likely to remain there? Atween us, the truth may be said, though I shouldn't like to have it known to the sarpent and hissed, but to you the truth may be spoken, since your feelings will not be as likely to be tormented by it as those of them that have known me longer and better. How long am I like to own this rifle or any other? That is a serious question for our thoughts to rest on, and should that happen which is so likely to happen, Killdeer would be without an owner." Judith listened with apparent composure, though the conflict within came near overpowering her. Appreciating the singular character of her companion, however, she succeeded in appearing calm, though, had not his attention been drawn exclusively to the rifle, a man of his keenness of observation could scarce have failed to detect the agony of mind with which the girl had hearkened to his words. Her great self-command, notwithstanding, enabled her to pursue the subject in a way still to deceive him.
"What would you have me do with the weapon?" she asked. "Should that which you seem to expect take place?"
"That's just what I wanted to speak to you about, Judith. That's just it. There's Chingachgook, now, though far from being perfect certainty with a rifle, for few natives ever get to be that. Though far from being perfect certainty, he is respectable and is coming on. Nevertheless, he is my friend, and all the better friend, perhaps, because there never can be any hard feelings atween us, touching our gifts, his'n being native, and my being altogether settler. Now, I shall like to leave Killdeer to the sarpent, should anything happen to me from doing credit and honor to your precious gift, Judith."
"Leave it to whom you please, Deerslayer. The rifle is your own, to do with as you please. Chingachgook shall have it, should you never return to claim it, if that be your wish."
Has Hetty been consulted in this matter? Property goes from parent to the child, and not to one child in particular.
"If you place your right on that of the law, Deerslayer, I fear none of us can claim to be the owner. Thomas Hutter was no more the father of Esther than he was the father of Judith. Judith and Esther we are truly, having no other name.
There may be law in that, but there's no great reason, gal. According to the custom of families, the goods are your'n, and there's no one here to gainsay it. If Hetty would only say that she is willing, my mind would be quite at ease in the matter. It's true, Judith, that your sister has neither your beauty nor your wit, but we should be the tenderest of the rights and welfare of the most weak-minded." The girl made no answer, but placing herself at the window, she summoned her sister to her side. When the question was put to Hetty, that simple-minded and affectionate creature cheerfully assented to the proposal to confer on Deerslayer a full right of ownership to the much-coveted rifle. The latter now seemed perfectly happy,
for the time being at least. And after again examining and re-examining his prize, he expressed a determination to put its merits to a practical test before he left the spot. No boy could have been more eager to exhibit the qualities of his trumpet or his crossbow than this simple forester was to prove those of his rifle. Returning to the platform, he first took the Delaware aside and informed him that this celebrated piece was to become his property in the event of anything serious befalling himself. This is a new reason why you should be wary, Sarpent, and not run into any uncalculated danger, the hunter added. For it will be a victory of itself to a tribe to own such a piece as this. The Mingos will turn green with envy, and, what is more, they will not venture heedlessly near a village where it is known to be kept. So, look well to it, Delaware, and remember that you've now to watch over a thing that has all the value of a creature, without its fallens, without its failings. Hist may be, and should be precious to you, but Killdeer will have the love and veneration of your whole people. One rifle like another, Deerslayer, returned the Delaware, in English, the language used by the other, a little hurt at his friend's lowering his betrothed to the level of a gun. All kill, all wood and iron. Wife dear to heart, rifle good to shoot. And what is a man in the woods without something to shoot with? A miserable trapper, or a forlorn broom and basket maker, at the best. Such a man may hoe corn and keep soul and body together, but he can never know the savory morsels of venison, or tell a bear's ham from a hog's. Come, my friend. Such another occasion may never offer again, and I feel a strong craving for a trial that is celebrated peace. You shall bring out your own rifle, and I will just sight Killdeer in a careless way, in order that we may know a few of its secret virtues. As this proposition served to relieve the thoughts of the whole party by giving them a new direction, while it was likely to produce no unpleasant results, everyone was willing to enter into it, the girls bringing forth the firearms with an alacrity bordering on cheerfulness. Hutter's armory was well supplied, possessing several rifles, all of which were habitually kept loaded in readiness to meet any sudden demand for their use. On the present occasion, it only remained to freshen primings, and each piece was in a state for service. This was done soon. This was soon done, as all assisted in it, the females being as expert in this part of the system of defense as their male companions. Now, Sarpent, we'll begin in a humble way, using old Tom's commoners first, and coming to your weapon and Killdeer as the winding up observations, said Deerslayer, delighted to be again, weapon in hand, ready to display his skill. Here's birds in abundance, some in and some over the lake, and they keep at just a good range, hovering around the hut. Speak your mind, Delaware, and point out the creature you wish to alarm. Here's the diver nearest in off to the eastward, and that's a creature that buries itself at the flash, and will be like enough to try both piece and powder. Chingachgook was a man of few words. No sooner was the bird pointed out to him that he took his aim and fired. The duck dove at the flash, as had been expected, and the bullet skipped harmlessly along the surface of the lake, first striking the water within a few inches of the spot where the bird had so lately swam. Deerslayer laughed, cordially and naturally, but at the same time he threw himself into an attitude of preparation and stood keenly watching the sheet of placid water. Presently, a dark spot appeared, and then the duck arose to breathe and shook its wings. While in this act, a bullet passed directly through its breast, actually turning it over lifeless on its back. At the next moment, Deerslayer stood with the breech of his rifle on the platform, as tranquil as if nothing had happened, though laughing in his own peculiar manner. "There's no great trial of the pieces in that," he said, as if anxious to prevent a false impression of his own merit. "No, that proofs neither for nor again the rifles. Seeing it was all quickness of hand and eye. I took the bird at a disadvantage, or he might have got under again afore the bullet reached him. But the sarpent is too wise to mind such tricks, having long been used to them. Do you remember the time, Chief, when you thought yourself sartain of wild goose, and I took him out of your very eyes as it might be with a little smoke? Howsever, such things pass for nothing atween friends, and young folk will have their fun, Judith. Aye, here's just the bird we want, for it's as good for the fire as it is for the aim, and nothing should be lost that can be turned to just account. There, further north, Delaware." The latter looked in the required direction, and he soon saw a large black duck floating in stately repose on the water. At that distant day, when so few men were present to derange the harmony of the wilderness, all the smaller lakes with which the interior of New York so abounds were places of resort for the migratory aquatic birds, and this sheet, like the others, had once been much frequented by all the varieties of the duck, by the goose, the gull, and the loon, on the appearance of Hutter. The spot was comparatively deserted for other sheets, more retired and remote, though some of each species continued to resort thither, as indeed they do to the present hour. At that instant, 100 birds were visible from the castle, sleeping on the water or laying their feathers on the limpid element, though no other offered so favorable a mark as that Deerslayer had just pointed out to his friend. Chingachgook, as usual, spared his words, and proceeded to execution. This time his aim was more careful than before, and his success in proportion. The bird had a wing crippled, and fluttered along the water screaming, materially increasing its distance from the enemies. "That bird must be put out of pain," exclaimed Deerslayer, the moment the animal endeavored to rise on the wing, "and this is the rifle and the eye to do it." The duck was still floundering along when the fatal bullet overtook it, severing the head from the neck as neatly as if it had been done with an axe. Hist had indulged in a low cry of delight at the success of the young native, but now she affected to frown and resent the greater skill of his friend. The chief, on the contrary, uttered the usual exclamation of pleasure, and his smile proved how much he admired and how little he envied. "Never mind the gal, Sarpent. Never mind Hist's feelings, which will neither choke nor drown, slay nor beautify," said Deer, laughing. "'Tis natural for women to enter into their husbands' victories and defeats, and you are as good as man and wife, so far as prejudice and friendship goes. Here is a bird overhead that will put the pieces to the proof. I challenge you to an upward aim with a flying target, sorrel-proof, and one that needs sartain rifles, as well as sartain eyes." The species of eagle that frequents the water and lives on fish was also present, and one was hovering at a considerable height above the hut, greedily watching for an opportunity to make a swoop, its hungry young elevating their heads from a nest that was in sight in the naked summit of a dead pine. Chingachgook silently turned a new piece against this bird, and after carefully watching his time, fired. A wider circuit than common denoted that the messenger had passed through the air at no great distance from the bird, though it missed its object. Deerslayer, whose aim was not more true than it was quick, fired as soon as it was certain his friend had missed, and the deep swoop that followed left it momentarily doubtful whether the eagle was hit or not. The marksman himself, however, proclaimed his own want of success, calling on his friend to seize another rifle, for he saw signs on the other part of the bird of an intention to quit the spot. I made him wink, Sarpent. I do think his feathers were ruffled, but no blood has yet been drawn, nor is that old piece fit for so nice and quick a sight. Quick, Delaware. You've now a better rifle, and, Judith, bring out Killdeer, for this is the occasion to try his merits, if he has 'em. A general movement followed. Each of the competitors got ready, and the girls stood in eager expectation of the result. The eagle had made a wide circuit after his low swoop, and fanning his way upward, once more hovered nearly over the hut, at a distance even greater than before. Chingachgook gazed at him, and then expressed his opinion of the impossibility of striking a bird at that great height, and while he was so nearly perpendicular as to the range. But a low murmur from Hist produced a sudden impulse, and he fired. The result showed how well he had calculated. The eagle, not even varying his flight, sailing round and round his airy circle, and looking down as if in contempt at his foes. Now, Judith, cried Deerslayer, laughing, with glistening and delighted eyes, we'll see if Killdeer isn't Kill Eagle, too. Give me room, Sarpent, and watch the reason of the aim, for by reason anything may be learned. A careful sight followed, and was repeated again and again, the bird continuing to rise higher and higher. Then followed the flash and the report. The swift messenger sped upward, and the next instant the bird turned on its side and came swooping down, now struggling with one wing and then with the other, sometimes whirling in a circuit, next fanning desperately as if conscious of its injury, until having described several complete circles around the spot, it fell heavily into the end of the arc. On examining the body, it was found that the bullet had pierced it about halfway between one of its wings and the breastbone. End of the chapter. What happened in this chapter? Not too much. Not too much. And we do end, no, we didn't say it. We didn't. So, nothing really happened. I guess we're just like settling, like it seems like it's the calm before the storm, like the putting things into the orders before the big end fight. That's what it seems like. So Deerslayer is expected back at the end of his furlough, and he is definitely going to go back. He's been saying this time and time again, that it's like a promise to himself, a promise to God, blah, blah, blah. He is going to go back. And so he's setting things aside, and Chingachgook and Hist are both agreeing that if Deerslayer is being tortured or killed or whatever it is, they're going to be there and taking revenge. They've already decided this. And Deerslayer is like, okay, but like, don't go in like guns a-blazing. Like, you're just two people against a whole tribe. And they're like, we're not dumb. We won't go in with eyes blind. And what else happened? Killdeer. Deerslayer has decided that Killdeer, which is the rifle that belonged to Floating Tom, should go to Chingachgook should Deerslayer not make it back. And then they have like target practice. And all these poor birds that they've been shooting. They're shooting birds, and lest we forget, Deerslayer doesn't unnecessarily kill. So they are going to use the birds that they've killed for food, for their feathers, all these things. But still, I don't like that. That's not nice. Hunting. Hunting happened. Yeah. So yeah, it very much felt like the calm before he goes back, and then it's going to be chaos and terror is what I'm imagining. Maybe. Maybe. So, that's going to be where we end tonight. That's going to be where we end. As I said before, I enjoy the story. I like the plot line. The writing style doesn't always do it for me, but the story itself is great. Is there character development? It felt like another middle of the book chapter, right? Which is weird because it's not the middle of the book anymore. Like we're beyond 80% of the way through at this point. So, I don't know. I don't know. We have 6 more chapters to go. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. What a way to end. We'll see. So, we'll finish next week. We'll see how it goes. Only 6. I know. How is it going to end? I don't know. I don't understand. I mean, I think that what's his name? Hurry is going to make it back just in the nick of time, but I don't necessarily want that. We'll see. We'll see. I don't know. I haven't read it. I don't know how this goes. And I haven't read the other books in the series. So it's not like, oh, well, I know that this happens because they mentioned it in another book. I don't know. I'm clueless here. That's where we're going to end tonight. So we'll pick up this book on Tuesday, 7 p.m. Central. We will be back on Monday with reading sprints, productivity sprints, body doubling, co working, whatever you want to call it, on Monday at 9 a.m. Central. So thanks all for being here. Happy Thursday. Have a great Friday. Enjoy your weekend. Yeah, it was a pleasure. As always, whether you lurk, whether you chat, I 1000% appreciate you. And I 1000% appreciate your support. If I do not see you next time, I hope to see you very soon.